So for those of you just tuning in, this is going to be a speedrun I did the other night, actually last night, yesterday, of Eternal 1.2.1 Release Candidate 2, which you can get from the Eternal website. I will go ahead and drop that into the chat in just a second. Just going to the Eternal development page and then selecting the Eternal X 1.2 folder. You can go ahead and get that. And I'm just gonna restream this with commentary. It was about 2 hours and 35 minutes. It, you know, it's a little bit slower than the run I did of Eternal 1.3, the last Eternal 1.3 beta run that I did, but there are some significant differences between the two different versions, and I also encountered a bug while I was doing this. So first of all, I should probably talk about why there are two different versions of the game. And the short answer is feature creep, because when we started out what became Eternal 1.3, we were just planning on a bug fix release, but then people just kept sending us new stuff. So, like, Tactica sent us a completely new set of weapons, and some new landscapes, and a new monster that we're going to use as a final boss battle. General Radix sent us some new sprites. Two different people gave us new music pieces. The Forest redid the textures. I redid all the sounds, and all of that adds up. And we also had some new story ideas, and all of this just added into basically a completely new major release of the game. But the problem is, Eternal 1.2, the current quote-unquote stable version, has some serious flaws. Notably, it does not run on Windows. So we had, back a year and a half ago or so, we had been putting together betas of what was at the time going to be numbered 1.2.1. And this is based on one of those. It's based on the latest beta, but we just went through and fixed some of the most pressing bugs and added a few very basic quality of life changes. Like, a lot of the big quality of life improvements of 1.3 are not even going to be in this version, but there were a couple of things that I felt like had to be backported. So anyway, what you'll see, I will probably comment on some of these differences as we're going through, but the most obvious thing you might have noticed if you've seen the 1.3 run is that the textures are the same color that they are in 1.2 right now. 1.3 has recolored versions of 4 of the 5 texture sets. The first level, which I just went through without really commenting on it, is just like it's the prologue. And so I went through and collected all of the fusion ammo. As it turns out, I use almost all of that ammo, and it's a few seconds out of the way to get each set of fusion batteries. And when you see how ridiculously overpowered the fusion cannon is in this version, you will see why I went to the trouble of getting it. I feel like it probably does save time in the long run, even though it's shorter for the first level. So this is the first level with actual combat. It's the level where you first find the Pfhor. It's very important to get that first fighter's staff. If you don't, then that's kind of a reset, because it's just so slow to get any of the other fighters. And this is really the only level at all where you have to worry at all about running out of staff charges. So I actually do go a little bit out of my way to fight a few fighters that I would probably ignore if this were any other level. One of the nice quality of life changes that 1.2.1 adds is that the staff will toggle switches. The primary, the melee trigger would always toggle switches, but the projectile did not previously. I thought that made no sense, and it was annoying. So for 1.2.1, which is what I'm going to continue calling it because it's annoying to say point over and over. So for 1.2.1, the staff will toggle switches, which speeds things up a bit. That's also in 1.3, obviously, but the one thing that is different between 1.2.1 and 1.3 is that 1.3 has the staff charge, the secondary shot. The projectile does a lot more damage in 1.3. And I think I actually overdid it in 1.3, and I'm probably going to reduce it a bit from what it is, but in 1.2.1 it just does the same damage that it did in 1.2. So. That particular Enforcer there can be a bit of a pain, so I actually went back a little bit further. Could probably take that a bit more aggressively, but I have just had to reset so many runs at this point that I just kind of got sick of it. I do go a little out of my way to fight these particular Enforcers, because their pellet packs are very, very important. Like, it's just such a good weapon that you don't really want to, you know, you want to get as many of them as you can at early game. I don't know if they're actually necessary. Like, I might not actually use the pellet packs or the scatter rifle that much in the early first couple of levels. I probably should time that out. That platform is kind of annoying. It just has a habit of going up right before you can get on it. Anyway, we're basically done with Deja Vu all over again. We're on to the next level. This level is the first of several levels that you basically do not explore about 2/3 of. If you were going to explore the entire level, it would probably take about 4 or 5 minutes. But I just explore about 1/3 of it, or maybe even 1/5 of it, I don't even know. And it takes a minute. Literally exactly a minute. In this particular, in 1.2.0, we had it so that this chip here could spawn in one of 3 locations, and literally nobody on the planet actually liked how that played out. And I had reports, although I was never able to duplicate this, that sometimes the chip wouldn't even spawn at all. But anyway, in 1.2.1, it's back to always spawning in the same place, because no one liked the guessing game. This particular recharge I probably didn't even need to take, but I just didn't want to chance it with this Enforcer. And we are done with the level. This next level, Dysmentria, is again a lot larger than you see in the speedrun, because again, there's just very little of it is actually relevant to the mission. Which this level doesn't really even have a mission; it's just get to the end. I go through and take out some of these extra fighters and Enforcers. If this were Kindergarten, I wouldn't even bother dealing with these Enforcers here, but they can really snipe at you and do some serious damage, so it's worth going out of your way to deal with them. And then I do handle this a little bit differently for 1.2.1. These guys, you can really just knock them out with a couple of staff bolts, or one staff bolt in 1.3. But in 1.2.1, it's not quite that simple, so the staff bolt is a lot weaker in 1.2.1. So I just find the scatter rifle is probably the fastest way to deal with them. You probably could use the fusion cannon, but I want to get my fusion later and for stronger enemies. And these are the first troopers that you'll see. The assault rifle is going to be absolutely crucial for a lot of this run. I would say for the first 3 chapters, basically the 3 god tier weapons are the scatter rifle, the havoc rifle, and then the fusion cannon. With the staff also plays a very large role because it's such an effective melee weapon. But of those, I would say that the scatter rifle kind of drops off in usefulness later in the game. You continue using the assault rifle specifically for grenade jumps throughout the entire game. That was a bug that I need to fix for the final release. There's just, the engine does not like certain boundaries without being... Basically, I need to split up the polygon. Anyway, as I was saying, the assault rifle is, like, it continues being useful for grenade jumps throughout the entire game, although that winds up being all you would use it for in Chapter 5. The fusion cannon is just an absolute god-tier sniper weapon. It basically renders every other sniper weapon in the game pretty much pointless. The Scatter Rifle is really good for crowd control, but you'll get better crowd control weapons later on in the game. The Assault Rifle is also a very good crowd control weapon, but it winds up being pointless for that compared to certain weapons later on. And then the Staff is like by far your best melee weapon, but hey Matrix, the Staff is by far your best melee weapon, but you'll get a better melee weapon in Chapter 5. So, and this level is the first of 4 branch points. This level, Sakhmet Rising, is the first of 5 branch points in Eternal, where you can go one of 2 different ways. This is labeled the any % run because you do not play any of the optional failure branches in the any % run. I have not actually even tried to route the 100% run, but I suspect that it would be about twice the any % run. This platform is on a very annoying and very tight cycle, and I managed to get the God timing there, where I didn't have to wait for it at all. It does not happen very often, and that switch is very hard to hit because it's small. I should note that I was like half asleep when I played most of this, and you can kind of tell at certain times. Like, I did not notice that trooper there. I thought he was dead, so I took more damage there than I should have. And then I also did not know this pilot was there until right here. And I missed him with that charged fusion shot. Decided I didn't really want to throw any more of my fusion ammo after him, so... For them, who knows what the Sith's genders are. Anyhow, I also do the left half of this level first, mostly because that Bob will usually die to the trooper, or the hunter rather, and that way I can collect their ammo. If I had to go back, then I would not be able to do so. And you can start to see why I value the fusion cannon so highly here. It's just a single charge shot will one-hit kill 90% of enemies in the game. I think the big exceptions are the Mother of all Hunters, the Holt, and the Juggernaut. I think those are the only 3 enemies that it does not one-hit kill. But of course, you have to actually hit the enemy dead on. Your aim is a little bit off, and you've wasted a shot. So, and my aim is not always the best. I do not bother recharging my oxygen here because Eternal will refill my oxygen when I'm not in a vacuum area, so there's really no point. This level, Cordon Bleu, is one of 2 levels that was in 1.2.0 we accidentally used some old versions of some levels. This is one of them, and Unwired is another one where we just based the version in the game on an older revision. And because of that, 1.2.1 will incorporate the intended changes. So this change really, this level should have been more or less the form that you will see in 1.2.1. That form should have been released more or less 2.5 years ago. But, we're not paying, I was not paying close attention and didn't realize, oh, this is the wrong revision. And unfortunately, when you see a downside of using the fusion cannon to toggle switches there, the fusion cannon will spawn 3 projectiles at once every time you fire it in 1.2.1. And if 2 of those projectiles have a data switch that can be turned on and off, then it will just not have any effect, basically. So that's, I think, what happened there. So I just eventually tapped the switch. As I can typically have been for most of Chapter 2, or for most of Chapter 1, I was just, up to this point, I did not really use the fusion cannon that much, because I want to use it against stronger enemies. And most of what you see in the first couple of chapters, their first couple levels, is just fighters, so there's really no point. But by this point, you're starting to see a lot more hunters and troopers and enforcers, and it's a lot more worthwhile to use the charge shots against them. Because again, it's just a one-hit kill, so it's pretty excellent. Another thing about 1-2-1 as opposed to 1-2-0 is that we did rebalance the attack rifle physics a bit. You'll notice that it fires... Its primary shots fire faster. Or fire slower, rather. Sorry, the assault rifle fires slower, but the grenades fire faster. The ramifications of this, like the side effects of this, or I guess the way we balanced that, is that because the assault rifle fires slower, the bullets do more damage than they did in vanilla. And similarly, the grenades are not as powerful as they were in vanilla, but you get 14 grenades per clip. So, like, it is like a trade-off, but like it definitely changes how that weapon feels and behaves to some extent. I think we probably will keep that for 1-3, and I think that may have actually been intended for 1-2-0, but for whatever reason, we just did not. We did not standardize the physics throughout the game properly, I think. Because when I went back to the 1-2-1 physics, it looked like a lot of levels had us firing the trooper assault rifle or trooper grenades, and I think those probably were balanced differently. And then some other levels had us firing our own, the player assault rifle or player grenade. And I think those were also balanced differently, and I'm not sure which was intended for 1-2-0, but in any case, 1-2-1, I standardized all of those for release candidate 2. I was very fortunate in the sewer area that I did not take that much damage, so I did not have to go back for a recharge. That's always a good feeling. I did happen to take a grenade to the butt right there, but it wasn't that big of a deal because I had plenty of health. I like this level, but it feels a little disjointed with you teleporting around so much. But, you know, it's just kind of how it is. One other thing I changed for 1-2-1 is that I made it so that the fusion cannon charges a bit faster than it did in previous versions of Eternal. Because it was throwing me off, because it uses the vanilla charge sound, but in previous versions you had to charge longer than you would with the vanilla fusion pistol. And that just messed me up every time I used it. So I just made it use the vanilla link, which makes it a bit more powerful, but I think that's fine. But what really makes it more powerful is that you now get 3 shots per 3 charge shots per battery, which is good because before it was just painful to use the charge for anything because you just felt like you were wasting ammo so much. Whereas now it actually does feel like you're getting a decent use out of the ammo. In fact, the charge shot is now the most efficient way to use the gun, assuming that your aim is all of it. I think the charge shot will actually do more damage than even the uncharged shots would if they all hit. So, you just kind of want to default to that, and it also has much higher DPS, I think. I was trying to avoid blowing up either of these enforcers here, but I was not that good. And so one of the differences between 1-2-1 and 1-3 is that in 1-3, we set the terminal stop time flag for every single level. So there are some parts at the end of a level where you can just ignore the enemies and just teleport out. You can't do that in 1-2-1. So that is one way where the 1-3 run can save a bit of time over 1-2-1. Because I have to deal with that Mother Ball Hunters, basically. This is one of a few levels that I have not really properly optimized for speedrun. The problem that I face is that the optimal route would involve dealing with this segment that has absolutely miserable combat, where you're basically... I would be forced to go into this area where there are respawning major compilers. And they are infinitely respawning. There will always be up to 5 at least that respawn at any given time. And if you look at the kindergarten runs that TBCR has done for this game, you'll see some absolutely ridiculous grenade jumps that the most optimal route this level does, which are great. But having to deal with that with a whole bunch of enemies with homing projectiles firing at you does not sound like it would be particularly fun, particularly since, if I recall right, those particular grenade jumps leave TBCR with basically no health left over. So, like, if it's that tight on Kindergarten, then I don't know if it's even doable on Total Carnage. So because of that, I use a much more convoluted route that probably is not great, but I need to really sit down and map out if there's a better way to do this. There might be, but I don't know what it would be. That trooper did take me a little bit by surprise there, but I luckily I was able to recover from it pretty quickly. I knew that there was a trooper coming, I just was a little too focused on not sniping at that particular fighter. And here, the three fighters up here, I was really hoping to wake those guys up, and for some reason I wasn't able to. I don't know what causes them to wake up, but because of that I had to waste a little bit of time going and hitting that switch manually. Well, I might not have had to. I might have just been able to just snipe at it with the fusion cannon and then just go back down, but it was a couple of seconds probably. I really gotta get better at my aim. So here, it's probably best to go get this recharge, because this next section is a little bit unpredictable. There are two troopers that will almost inevitably be down in that lava segment that I'm about to drop down to. The thing is, they don't start in that lava segment, and you have no idea where exactly they're going to be. Which means that there's really no way to get this, like, you're not going to have a consistent battle here, because their starting position can be just about anywhere in that lava area, apart from on the lava itself. They never step on that. But apart from that, they will, they can be just about any particular part of that lava segment. And so, like, you can't really get a consistent strategy for dealing with them, because it'll just be different every time you play the level. And the reason that it works out like that is because they're in the same zone as a particular polygon that you walk over earlier in the level that has a monster trigger on it. And because the monsters go seek the player if they can find the player, like, if they can find you, then they'll just move towards you. But if they can't find you, then they'll just move around randomly. And their random motion inevitably sends them towards that lava area. You guys hear me? I need to double check that. I would have to pause the video. So we're already almost done with Chapter 1, which this and Chapter 5 I think are the two shortest chapters by quite a long margin. The others are quite a bit more time consuming. This level, and its counterpart in the failure timeline, Roots and Radicals. For 1.3, I made some quality of life changes that probably speeded up a tiny bit, but I didn't backport all of those to 1.2.1. And I'm not sure if I should or not, but I am inclined not to, because it's like, if I go down that route, then I just kind of run the risk of delaying 1.2.1, because I'm just making all of these really small obsessive changes that are not really bug fixes. The platforms in this area are very annoying, because you have to wait for them, like, seemingly 9 times out of 10. In particular, there's this next platform set that I'm coming along. This particular platform that I'm dropping down right now, not the one that I just hit the switch for, but the shaft that I just dropped down. That particular platform, it seems to be impossible to not have to wait for that platform when you're on your way back up. I did not do that optimally at all, but even if I do that optimally, then it will always end up walking. It'll be within my sight when it starts extending back up. I do not like that, but I don't, I'm probably not gonna make too many changes like that for quality of life. One thing I am going to change is that that 5D segment has some motion glitches, because the engine does not like how the polygons are. It doesn't like some of the stuff about the polygon boundaries. You will notice that I shot those 4 switches earlier, and I did that. I think that probably saves time. I'm not sure, because you can either shoot them from a distance, or you have to shoot them up close, and the up close is probably a little bit more finicky, but I don't know. I really need to time that out and see how it is. Anyway, you have to just destroy all those wires, and that's the mission for this level, and we are out of here. This is the first of 4 dream versions of the final non-dream level of this game, which is called Where Giants Have Fallen. But this time around, we're going backwards, and I think I just noticed that I don't think our dream perspective is applying. So that's something I need to fix for the final version. Okay. A good thing I was watching this. Anyway. Yeah, that's chapter 1. Let me double check and make sure that you guys... Yeah, you guys can hear me, right? You guys can hear me. So, Hysterical Womb is one of the levels that has probably... I think this level probably has the biggest change from 1.2.0. Okay, good. Just wanted to be sure. Anyway, in previous versions of this game, this level was Extermination. And it was a particularly finicky extermination mission. It was set up so that there were 8 monsters in an inaccessible polygon that the player could never reach. And the thing about extermination missions in Marathon is that you can leave up to 8 monsters alive, and it will still flag that the mission is completed. So this meant that you basically had to kill every monster that you could actually access. There was no room for error at all. But this didn't really make logical sense. The point of this mission is that you are, like Tico is sending you in here to kill these 4 controller cyborgs, and by doing so, free the Spit and the other cyborgs to his allegiance. But the thing is that if we're doing that, then why does he want us to kill the Spit and the cyborg in this area? So that makes no sense. So 1.2.1 changes that. It is no longer extermination. There's just some Lua scripts that are used to that are flagged whenever you destroy the 3 controller cyborgs. Once you have destroyed those 3 controller cyborgs, the mission is complete. There is an optional side quest in this level, which we are not going to bother with because this is a speedrun, but if you also kill all the enforcers on this level, then the non-controller cyborgs and the compilers on this level will start to rebel on this level. But I did not bother doing that because it's a speedrun. These 2 hunters that I'm firing at right now sometimes wake up and sometimes don't, and I don't know what causes it. It's kind of strange. I don't know what caused it. Anyway, one thing about 1.2.1 in particular versus 1.3 is that now that this fusion cannon is not a ridiculous waste of ammo, the sniping just goes so fast. Although I did mess up this shot at this enforcer here, you can barely see. It's just like, it's so satisfying. I am going to, I think for 1.3 I am going to adopt the 1.2.1 fusion cannon changes. Just because it's a even better weapon, I think, with these changes. It makes, like, the important thing is that the fusion cannon secondary shot is just a complete joke in other versions of the game where you use an entire battery. Like, you would never use that except when you're at the very end of the battery. In the other game, whereas in this case it is the optimal way to use the weapon. I probably don't need those flame cells. In fact, I didn't really even intend to pick up the first parry that I just got, but then once I got it, I said, well, why not? I'll get the second parry too. Just have to drop down to that without really thinking about it. There were a couple of spots here on this level where I almost died because I was not being super careful with my health. That was one of them. There's another one in a moment. I start to be more careful later on in the run, but this is still somewhat early, so like it's 28 minutes down the drain if I die here, but yeah. It's not like it's 2 hours down the drain, which it would be later. You will hear that charging shot a lot during this run, in case you haven't already figured that out. Yeah, there's the second time where I almost died due to reckless. Not that. Not a big deal. One particular change between 1-2-1 or with 1-2-1 is that I can just really ignore those hunters. There's like in previous versions I would almost always take care of them before I get rid of the controller cyborgs, but in that case you can just one-shot the controller cyborg with a third of a fusion battery, so there's really no point in doing anything else. And I thought I might have used not have used the fusion cannon as much as I probably should have, but as it turns out I only had 5 fusion batteries left, so I think I rationed myself fairly well. Here I left Bob alive and lived to regret it almost immediately. I just said, "This is speedrun, dude. You shouldn't have been in my way." Probably didn't even need to deal with that later, but whatever. Bobs are really good for getting in the way these days. I should just remember that. I am still trying to ration my fusion ammo a little bit. After the next level, that will not be a problem. But for now, I do want to typically just use it for sniping at enemies, rather than enemies that are close up, so I can easily kill with the staff. In a moment, I'm going to go at what I'm assuming is an intentional secret, is the original map makers left these 3 fusion batteries up here, and I don't think they would have done that. They didn't need a new player to get up there. So I'm pretty sure that that's an intentional secret. But no, that does end up being quite useful, and its counterpart on the other side of that structure that ends up being quite useful for the route for this speedrun. It just enables us to ignore a significant portion of this level. And I do mess up this jump here. It's not. It's kind of difficult to do, which I'm assuming is, you know, it's a secret, so probably it's not intended to be easy. As you can see, I think it takes, what, 7 charged shots to kill a Juggernaut. That's just, it's very nice. And this is a, you know, a major Juggernaut with the vanilla health, which is 7,500 on Little Carnage. Now you can see me very, very badly using this scatter rifle. Like you can tell I'm half asleep there because I would have noticed a little bit sooner that I was not actually hitting anything if I hadn't been half asleep. On the other hand, that sniping at that the troopers was very, very effective. And I also forgot this enforcer was still alive. But not a problem. I probably didn't even need to go pick up this ammo here, but I don't know. I wanted it. There probably are a whole bunch of little time saves that I can do for a future run. Because now that I look at it, the only thing that would be that I was particularly in danger of running out of, I guess, was the fusion batteries. And you get plenty of those in the next level. So yeah, that's completely pointless, I suppose. I'm like, it's just really hard to get myself out of the habit of picking up ammo when I don't need it. One thing about here is that I am basically just firing the rest of that scatter rifle magazine, because if I don't, then it just ends up getting wasted when I pick up the next scatter rifle there. This is just it's a particular response or effect of how those are the scatter rifle weapon, whereas you usually pick up scatter rifle magazines from enforcers. And if you pick up the weapon rather than the magazine, then it will refill what's in your clip if you don't. If your clip is not all the way full, but it will not give you a new one. But if you have a completely full clip, then it will just give you another clip. So that's kind of strange, and I wonder if maybe I should change those to just be the magazine instead. I don't know if that would work correctly. I don't know if it would. Well, I guess you would probably have to have the scatter rifle by that point because it's late enough in the game. One thing about this particular area, I am avoiding stepping in those areas because I don't want to wake up those troopers. I don't know if those troopers would actually even wake up, but the one on the left, or is it the one on the right? I don't know. There's one of them where if you walk onto it, it will wake up some hunters, and you don't really want to do that. It'll probably wake up the troopers too. So this level, unlucky for some, is going to be the source of our fusion cannon, fusion cannon ammo for basically everything up until chapter 5. As you can see right now, we have 14 infusion batteries. We're gonna raise that by quite a lot pretty quickly on this level. Right now I am doing a skip. This is definitely not intended by the original map makers, but the assault rifle in this game is broken. This is true of basically every marathon game, by the way. It's not an internal exclusive thing. But the assault rifle in internal is very broken. But I don't really want to change it because it's very fun. So you can just do that clip through that platform. It's no big deal. And as you can see, I did it without even taking damage. That's the impressive part. But I did, however, take quite a bit of damage up there. You want to aim yourself at a particular angle there, so that, like, if you aim yourself too far, then you'll end up getting pinned against the wall and can die. Because a bunch of monsters can just target you and, you can't move. And if you aim yourself at too shallow of an angle, then you'll end up being just warping through the platform and not actually getting up to the top. You'll just warp back rather than, you'll warp straight to the other side rather than warping to the top. So I find that if you press F10, it will show you a bunch of information about your position and angle and so on. And I think the correct angle is about negative 144. It might be positive 144. I can never remember which. It's one or the other of those. And if you use that angle, you'll always get up to the top, and you won't get pinned back very far. So it's a pretty good, consistent angle. And this just enables it to skip like 80% of this level. I wasn't sure where that fighter got off to. One thing, the next thing that you want to do when you get up here, you want to hit that switch. And if you're playing a version before 1.2.1, you don't want to hit that switch twice. That's very important because you can soft lock the game. 1.2.1 fixes that bug. And once you have hit that switch, you'll want to wait about 3 or 4 or 5 seconds, and you'll want to fire the weapon. It doesn't really matter which weapon as long as they can hear it, so not fists. And once you've done that, like, you want to make sure that the monsters are moving below you. That's very important because otherwise the enforcers will just be standing at the edge, and they'll be sniping at you all the entire time once you get down there. Which we're going to go down there in about 3 minutes, or 2 or 3 minutes probably. But now we're going to go shopping, as you might call it. And I think this is a pretty good comparison of Marathon 2's shopping in Beware of Abandoned Rental Trucks. You see right now I have 12 fusion batteries. We're gonna want to have at least... I think I end up leaving this one with about 180. Which wound up being more than I needed, but I wasn't sure how many I was going to need. Or it might have been 100. If I remember right, I think I calculated that I would have been okay if I had left this level with about 121 batteries. But I'll just say 130 to 150 to be safe. Now you gotta be careful here because there's Juggernauts, and Juggernauts are extremely dangerous enemies. In particular, their explosions will kill you if you have... well, the explosions do anywhere from 300 to 350 damage. Now, to be clear, the player will die if their shields get below 0. If your shields are 0, you're fine. If your shields are -1, you die. So, 1x shields is 150, 2x shields is 300. Is that right? Yeah. Okay, so I misspoke earlier. Juggernauts do 350 to 400 damage when they die. Okay, so if you have 350 shields, you might survive, but it's very, very, very unlikely. If you have 400 shields, you will definitely survive. 400 shields is 2 2/3, exactly. 450 shields is 3x. 300 shields is 2x. So, basically, you don't want... Like, basically, if you are near a Juggernaut and your shields are below 3x, you're basically just taking a gamble. As it turns out, I have 145 fusion batteries here, so I probably would have been fine to just go ahead and leave the level. But I had not done a complete run of 1-1 before, so I wasn't really sure. So I went out and got a few more fusion batteries, which probably wasted about a minute. But I'll know that for next time. As it turns out, the biggest time loss was actually due to a bug in this game, which will be fixed for the 1-2-1 final. I will elaborate more on it when we get to it. I think I probably lost about 3 minutes for that time loss. To that bug. Anyway, I have 171 fusion batteries now, which is... I wound up leaving the last level of Chapter 4 with 50 fusion batteries, so 121 would have been okay. But I'll just say 130 to 140 for future runs, and that should be good. Alright, so now we are going to the end of this level. There is this full set of enemies here. The reason I said you wanted to fire before you left that area is because a couple of those enforcers are just dug in at the edges. You know, there's like the edges of like it's sort of a cross, and they would be on the top or bottom or left or right of the cross, and they'd just be sniping at you from the sides the whole time. And you'd be taking damage from them, and it would be really difficult to dodge. The other thing about this area is that you do need to be careful that you are not caught in Juggernaut, or not Mother of All Hunters explosion with low shields. Again, you can pretty much ignore these Mothers of All Hunters in 1.2.1, or in 1.3 rather, but in 1.2.1 terminals do not stop time, so it is better to deal with them. But as long as your shields are decent, you don't really need to be that careful. And I had nearly 3x shields when I took that Mother of All Hunters explosion, so I was, you know, perfectly fine. Mother of All Hunters explosions do a little bit more than 1x, so As long as you're like 1.25x, let's say, or higher, you'll probably be okay. This level of Unpfhorseen is the second branch level in Marathon in Eternal. And we just, with that grenade jump, we just skipped about a third of the level. There's this underground segment that's pretty dangerous, and that grenade jump is very, very safe. So we just skipped a fairly decent chunk of this level. And we're about to YOLO next part of this level. This is one of my favorite parts of this run. It's just really, really satisfying. I probably don't need that flame cell, but I can't help myself. I am very compulsive about picking up ammo. I thought there was going to be a trooper there, but there wasn't, so just wasted that part of that thought. And hello, Defender, what are you doing there? I also thought there were going to be some enemies there, but there weren't. Anyway, what we're going to do here is we're just going to spam a whole bunch of fusion ammo. I think Twitch's stream quality probably just went to absolute garbage. I apologize for that. It's just a combination of the monochrome color scheme with this, this very high frequency textures, and then we've got this static, this static effect with the invincibility power up. The scatter rifle is really, really good for dealing with swarms of wasps. It's like it was custom made for it, because wasps will hover at your view height, and the scatter rifle has 0 vertical error. The other weapon that's very, very good for dealing with wasps is the fusion cannon. I think they're probably weak to fusion. I'm not 100% sure about that, but it certainly feels like it. I need to double check that in the physics. You should not rely on my saying that as definitive proof, because I don't remember that for sure, but I think I remember that, but I have not double checked it. I did take a bit more damage here than I was hoping to. I wound up having to go back for a recharge, which was probably it cost me about 20 seconds. And this happens more than once on this level. I do again, I am a little bit reckless on this level, but luckily there's a bunch of recharges on this level, so none of them are particularly costly. I think they're probably about 20-second time losses each, if that. And luckily there are also all 3x, so that you don't really have to go back for them very often. And it is always very satisfying when you can use a single charged shot to take out more than one enemy. And here I think I probably thought there was one fewer fighter than there actually was. Once again, I was half asleep when I played most of this, so that didn't help. With this particular area, I think it's good to take out the first 2 enforcers with charged shots. The third one probably is not that important to have to use a charged shot for. Because you can, like, the enforcers are pretty dangerous, the fighters are not. I couldn't remember if I hit that switch. The fighters are not that dangerous, unless you're at very low shields. Once again, the fusion cannon just does some incredible work here. I would say the fusion cannon is probably the best weapon you have up until 4. And even then, the wave motion cannon, which you get in Chapter 4, you do not actually get enough ammo to actually use it much until Chapter 5. So, like, for the first 4 chapters of the game, the first 4 chapters, I would say the fusion cannon is basically the one S tier weapon you get, and it does reduce the tiers after that point, but like 3 charged shots to kill a mother of all 100. What more could you ask for? In this particular case, I do not want to hit this switch behind me with the so I don't use the fusion cannon against those wasps. It's not as bad in this version as it is in 1.3. If in 1.3 you would be hit by an absolute swarm of projectiles from the Mother of All Hunters, where it would just be an inconvenience in 1.2.1. In 1.3 you would basically just have to go kill the Mother of All Hunters, because you could probably just ignore him, or her, I guess her, in 1.2.1, but you would still probably take a little bit of damage. And as it turns out, I was a little bit reckless here, and forgot that I had left some of those that swarm of monsters alive, and that almost killed me. You do need to take a little bit more caution than I did to leave those guys alive, because it is a potential hazard. I will remember that in future runs, I'm sure, but I wasn't thinking about it at the time. As it turns out, I didn't actually need to go back for that recharge. I don't think those guys are actually very well placed to hit you up on those stairs, but I wasn't really sure if they were a danger to me at that point, so I just didn't chance it. Anyway, with this level, if you want to see the failure branch, you leave with Pico. If you want to see the success branch, you leave with Leela, as I'm about to do. And we're basically done. That level could have gone a little bit better, but I am pretty pleased with how it went. Okay. It's got some good combat. So for this level, there is a fair amount of fusion ammo that you can get here, but it's just not as... it's not as efficient time-wise to get it as it is to get the fusion ammo and unlucky for some. And the same goes, for that matter, for Unpfhorseen. You can pick up a whole bunch of fusion batteries on Unpfhorseen as well, but again, you just have to... you have to go way out of your way. As it turns out, the fastest... of these 3 levels, the most efficient one is unlucky for some. You have to go the shortest distance out of your way to pick it up, and you get the most of it, so there's really no point in going too far out of your way to get this. There is one difference in 1.2.1 versus 1.3 as to how I handle this invincibility. In 1.3, when I get it, I try to deal with the Mother of All Hunters as quickly as possible, because the Mother of All Hunters has probably the most dangerous, the worst DPS of all the enemies in this segment. In this version, I think the Mother of All Hunters is not really that big of a threat, so I deal with the Enforcers instead. I think I get rid of most of them before my... Yeah, I kill the last Enforcer just as my invincibility is wearing off. You may notice this area resembles an airport terminal. That's entirely by design. And this level probably does not have enough negative space. We did actually put more negative space in for 1.3. I don't believe we added as much for 1.2.1. We might still have a little more than the 1.2.0 version does. I am just not hitting anything with this staff very well at the moment. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And that was another glitch with the engine, just not liking how those polygons are divided. I probably will fix that for 1.2.1 final. And because this is such a long, straight corridor, you just, it pays to just grenade jump backwards. You're kind of wasting your time if you don't. I don't know what I was doing with that charge shot, but whatever I was intending to do, I did not do. But as you can see, the fusion cannon just doing some absolutely marvelous work here. And it is good to go ahead and deal with this Enforcer because they can just sneak up from behind while you're dealing with this whole set of enemies here. I don't know what wakes them up. Sometimes they wake up, sometimes they don't. But it's better to just preclude the possibility. I don't know why that trooper did not wake up from here. Or maybe the trooper came from further back, I don't even know. Anyway. There's literally 100 minutes left of the run, that's about right. High aperture. Yeah, Eternal's a very long game, but it's pretty fun. Like, for, it helps that most of the longest levels, I think, like, yeah, I'd say all of the longest levels are not included in the speedrun, so that helps. Because, the two longest levels are Unwired, going max to sleep, and both of those are not part of the speedrun, so the any percent run that is. I mean, obviously, if you did 100%, it would be in that, which is why no one does 100%. And here is another sign that I was half asleep. I just walked on that trooper without really even thinking about it. If I had not been half asleep when I did this. It's long because there's 37 levels in it. Let me move the chat window over a little bit. This is gonna pause the stream for a second. It's long because lots of levels, mostly. I mean, there are definitely quite a few shortcuts actually. There are some levels that I have not really properly routed yet, and in one of those chapter 3 levels that actually does come back to bite me because although it doesn't come back to bite me, it comes back to bite me in terms of there's this bug that messes up my progression, and because I have not properly routed it for speedrun, I have some trouble with some grenade jumps. But because I have not properly routed it, I don't know if I would have uncovered the bug if I hadn't properly routed it, so... but anyway, yeah, there are a few levels that I have not really properly routed that I could probably save quite a bit of time on. But there's a couple levels that you probably can't really slow the speed up that much. Like, I guess there's the level that's the longest in this run right now is the Incredible Hulk. I think in this version, I think it was like 12 minutes, which is a long time. I do wonder if there's like a way to warp through one of those doors or something in a way that could save you a bunch of time. But like it could also, if you did that, I don't know, like if you would have a way back to get a recharge, so that could, you know, if for total carnage, it might not even be practical, because you would probably take more damage than you would be able to take through. Like you would. Like, I would assume that you would take, like, at least the shield's worth 1x worth of damage by warping through a door like that, so... And my guess is... Like, a lot of those doors don't really have a high enough ceiling for you to really warp properly. So I think the Incredible Hulk might just be stuck at, like, 12 minutes long. And there you just saw an annoying bug where if a monster dies at the edge of a polygon, it will often not drop an item. Anyway... but yeah, I think there are 37 levels. Now granted, some of those are not really levels, like the green levels are not levels. But, some of those levels are just going to end up being long. Once More Into the Breach is going to end up being long no matter what, because it's an extermination. Fortunately, it's the only extermination in any percent. But there are quite a few levels that have some pretty big skips, and there are some levels that you basically don't play at all. Spit Happens is probably the most interesting of those. You basically just skip the entire level. But there are a lot of levels that you can get down to like 1 or 2 minutes, and there's some that are like 3 or 4. There's not very many that are, 10, 12 minutes, I think, really. Once More Into the Breach and The Incredible Hulk are by far the 2 longest ones. I think there's a few others that are like 6 or 7 minutes long. Maybe one or two that are 8 minutes, 9. I don't think there's anything else that's. I don't know. I'd have to go look at my splits, which would involve me pausing this. So I'm gonna do that later. This level is the last level of Chapter 2, other than the Dream. I'm not gonna say that it's free in 1-2-1, but it's not very difficult. And like, I think honestly the biggest time losses I've had on this level that would apply to 1-2-1 are sometimes you can forget one of those wires, and that can cost a lot of time. So you need to make sure that you actually. There are 3 pairs of wires, or 3 pairs of wires, so 6 wires total that you need to destroy for this mission. It is very important to make sure that you hit both wires in each pair. It's easy to just. I almost, if I hadn't gone back and double checked, I might have actually missed one of those. I think I knew that I probably didn't hit that one, so which is why I went back and double checked. But you'd want to be sure of that, because if you don't, then you have to go back and hit them again, and that could be like 2 or 3 minutes away from the terminal. Other than that, there's some troopers and stuff. There's a little bit of difficult combat, but in 1-3, the most dangerous enemy is the Mother of All Hunters, and Mother of All Hunters is kind of a joke in 1-2-1. So this level is just not particularly difficult. There's only a couple of fairly minor hazards. Just watch your shield level and you'll be fine, basically. Like, yeah, here's this Mother of All Hunters. You just, as long as you're not caught in their shrapnel, you'll be fine. That said, I did completely forget that this fighter was there, but that was fun. But that said, I would say the 3 levels, there's a couple levels I can think of that I definitely have not really routed properly. Let Sleeping Gods Die, which is one of the levels that I was talking about earlier. I have not routed that one properly at all. I feel like I could probably cut it. I think in this run, I think it probably took me like 7 or 8 minutes because I had that bug to deal with. It could definitely. I feel like if you did it properly, it would probably take about 2 minutes. Normally it takes me about 4, so I am going like 2 minutes out of my way. And the other level that I have not routed properly at all is Heart of Fusion from Chapter 1. And I'm really reluctant to route that one because I don't know if there's a good way to route it for Total Carnage. Because it would depend on doing a skip in an area that has respawning compilers. And there's an infinite number of them that can respawn. And I don't know if there's a way to get that consistent, because you would have to deal with those compilers while you're attempting a very, very difficult grenade jump that might leave you with almost no shields. And possibly no shields whatsoever. Like, you could be left with a bow and arrow. I'm assuming. Anyway, having to dodge, homing bolts while doing a difficult grenade jump does not sound particularly fun. But, it is possible that I could come up with a more consistent way to do it. I just haven't really looked at it yet. And I think those are probably the 2 levels that would be the most promising for further refinements that I can think of. Well, the 2 that have further refinements that I know would be at least theoretically possible. And Let Sleeping Gods Die, I was just being lazy with. There's just some grenade jumps that I wasn't super. I feel like they might not be super consistent, but. And again, I think, judging from the experiments that I had to deal with the bug that I encountered, I think the way I was thinking I was going to end up doing the grenade jump might have been the less optimal way. You do have to be careful with the end of this level, because sometimes some troopers will just wander randomly around the level, but as you can see, they're not really that big of a threat when you have a one-hit kill like that. This fusion cannon is just so satisfying. We are going to port that over to 1.3, which we had not done yet, but Like, right, it's just being able to use only a third of a fusion battery rather than an entire fusion battery with a charged shot just makes the charged shot so much more worthwhile. Like, you basically only ever use it at the end of a shot when it deals with it, when it uses the entire shot, but I think I did finally get one of these holes in one in this run. I don't think it was this one. I think it was chapter 4. I have gotten them before. It's just not very consistent. Got the rim there, which is not quite the same. And that I probably didn't mention this last time, but when the in the first 2 dreams, the teleport in and teleport out sounds are different. And that's to signify that you've traveled in time. So here for this one, we will just shoot the assault rifle a little bit at the start. This will enable us to do a skip. That saves probably about 30 or 40 seconds, I think. I have not... I don't know if like this could be routed possibly a little bit more efficiently, but I think we're pretty close to the optimal route here. It's just a matter of I need to test a couple of possible routes against each other and see what the most effective route is. Part of the issue here is that as god tier weapon as the fusion cannon is, it does not do damage against Afflicta, so we do have to switch back and forth between weapons a bit. And I think that probably still is more efficient because the DPS of the fusion cannon and of the shock staff is very, very good each individually, but you know, you only like you can use the shock staff against the defenders, but it's not that effective. But it is really effective with this, especially because you can often just knock them back into the lava. You don't even have to bother killing them. And here, you do want to be a little careful. Like, I do try to use a semblance of the usual strat with the assault rifle, but like you want to avoid hitting that defender because the defenders do not start out, like most of the defenders do not start out hostile towards you, apart from the orange ones and the light blue ones. But the like if you hit them, they will start firing on you. So it's better to avoid hitting them. And because, you know, if you actually have to kill them, then that's a bit of a time loss too. So it might actually be less of a time loss than going that far out of your way. The grenade jump, I don't really know. And here, since I have almost 3x shields, we're just going to yellow the rest of this good boy segment. And in the hard stuff rules, I think there's only like in the route that people would do in a speedrun, there's only 4 hostile defenders. But I think I might have dealt a little bit suboptimally with this. Yeah. I'm a little flustered by this these boxes here. I don't know why I just had such trouble with that, but and then there's one more hostile defender, but we can just run past him. And then there's a couple hostile Afflicta, but I think we can just run past them too. You know, this is a pretty straightforward level. I mean, there's a little bit that could be done to speed it up. There is a possible, like, there's a possibly faster route in this segment of the hard stuff rules, but the problem is it's ridiculously RNG dependent. It's dependent upon monster motion, because the monsters can trigger one of those platforms, and you can't. So it basically just depends on the monsters deciding to be nice and, you know, trigger both of those platforms on an optimal way for you. So it's probably a task-only strat, really. Realistically, I mean, who would actually want to bother with that in a real run? And here I leave that door open just in case I need to go back with that recharger. Anyway, I did encounter a bug in this level, which probably exists in 6,000 Feet Under as well. But one thing is, I want to take the opening of this level kind of cautiously because this is a very volatile segment of the level. These ticks, or flappy boys as we call them, can do a lot of damage very quickly. But they're not actually the main threat. The main threat are these hostile defenders here, the orange ones. And so you want to like I end up just waiting for them here, because if I go out and YOLO it, then I don't really have a good way to get back to a recharger, and that's a problem, because they can do a lot of damage very, very quickly. But I think you'll probably see honestly, like, yeah, you can see I was at almost 3x, or I was a little bit over 3x, and now I'm at barely 1x, or barely over 1x. So because of that, I just wanted to be careful there. But anyway, I am going a roundabout way here, which in an optimal speedrun I would not be doing. And my route wound up being even less optimal because of this bug that I found out about, which will be fixed in the final release of 1.2.1, but we didn't know it existed in RC2, so it's not fixed in this version. So yeah, basically I go ahead and grenade jump over here, which, yeah, whatever. But there are these two switches that you hit to raise some platforms and lower some lava, which is what you would do in a vanilla playthrough without, the grenade jumps or whatever. Sorry, Svit, you need to learn to not get in the way in the speedrun. Anyway, so there's this one platform here. Okay, well enough. And then I accidentally hit this platform, this switch twice. And as it turns out, that turns off about 5 different platforms in the level, because Bungie did not mark them as can't deactivate externally. So it turns out that not only do amateur map makers have trouble with that, but so did Bungie. So I'm pretty sure that the hard stuff rules must have been exactly the same way. So if you deactivate those platforms, then you just can't complete the level without grenade jumping. I imagine that the hard stuff rules is probably like that as well. So the important lesson here is don't hit that switch twice. I'm able to work around this because I know how to grenade jump, and because grenade jumping is particularly easy in Eternal. I don't know if I would have been able to get myself out of that in Marathon 2. Like, that would have been a really, these would be some very, very difficult grenade jumps in Marathon 2. And I also just wind up improvising a bit here. So I went number 1. Oh, wow, that's not able, I'm not able to do that. Okay. So I wound up going, okay, I really hope the other one isn't like this. And of course, the other one was exactly like that. But so I figure, well, I'll just try to grenade jump over to the other side, which is what I would have done if I had optimally routed this. And I screwed that up. Which is what I was afraid of. I was afraid that if I tried to do that, and then I would not actually be able to make that jump. And as it turns out, I do not have enough damage or enough health left over to make the trip across the lava. So in this case, I figure, well, I'll just go turn the lava off. So, lower the lava. So that's what I do. I think a lot of players may not even be aware this exists. This exists on the vanilla game, by the way. Like, it's like that in the vanilla game too. You can hit that switch that I just hit, and it will lower the lava, so that you don't have to take damage. It's way out of the way, but so no one and the speedrun doesn't even bother with it. The speedrun, you just have to get up to that terminal at the end, which is not the end of this version. Anyway, because of that, I have to go around, and I did pop up my shields. Now I will go. Yeah, I had no idea that terminal was there until last year, I think. I literally had no idea it was there until last year. Like, I don't think even the Marathon spoiler guide mentions that, which is kind of surprising, actually, because that seems like exactly the sort of thing that should be in the spoiler guide. So anyway, I attempt this grenade jump again and screw it up again, but I do go a different way this time. Which I think if I'm gonna go ahead and route this for speedrun, I think that's that's not surprising. Like, I'm not surprised. I would. Yeah, I think this is probably the most optimal way to route this for speedrun, is to just do that grenade jump, the one that I just did, and I think that's probably Because you've just got to go get that chip, and then go through here, go hit this, go put this chip in. I think that's probably the most optimal route. So like, I think that's probably what I'll end up doing in future runs. And I would have just spared myself all of this running around. But as you can see, that was like 3 or 4 minutes that I lost, probably due to that bug. But I think that probably this would be about 2 or 3 minutes. Like, the level would take about 2 or 3 minutes if I used the optimal route. I probably would still be cautious with those spit with that early part, because they can be pretty damaged, pretty nasty. We'll see how long. Yeah, that was 6 minutes and 34 seconds. So that was, yeah, I think I probably lost about 3 minutes to that. Luckily, most of the rest of the run does not go that badly. This level, I think, could probably be optimized by about 20 or 30 seconds, maybe beyond what I do. I feel like there's a grenade jump somewhere that I could probably do that would save a little bit of time, but overall, I'm not sure how much can be put out of it. This level can be a bit volatile because it has a lot of flappy blades on it, a lot of them. And as you can see, they are nothing to laugh at in this game. They can take your fields down very, very quickly. One thing that I'm doing here, which I did not actually do optimally, I think it's probably I was trying to wake up all these spit and the flick and the flappy boys. But you know, whatever. It wasn't too bad. And then this other. Like, you basically just gotta pick up these 2 chips and then put the 2 chips in that terminal that I passed earlier. And I think there's probably a more optimal way to do about this. Did not mean to hit that spit, but then did hit that spit. And they just get aggro again until you kill them. So there's really nothing else to be done about it. Dealing with all those like all those different flappy boys at once is always quite satisfying now. I mean, this level can be a bit dangerous, but, you know. Excuse me, Spit, please. Yeah. I probably would, like, probably should have just, you know, pulled them at that point for speedrun, but whatever. Anyway, you know, this is not a super long or usually super difficult level. As you can see, I wasn't really even worried about going and charging up. And this level we'll barely see. This is the 3rd branch level in Eternal. And interestingly, if you want to get to the failure branch, it's a lot more complicated. But if you want to get to the success branch, well, I won't even bother explaining what you do, because I'm already done with it by the time I finish explaining. Okay, I guess the explanation is really simple. You just grenade jump out the window, but that's the level. So this is 3rd Rock from Lh'owon. This level was added for 1.1. It's not part of 1.0. It's probably the most difficult level of Chapter 3. Though I think probably more of my runs have died on Let Sleeping Gods Die. And that's probably just due to a weakness of my playstyle, but I don't really know. This one, it's just, like, it's pretty volatile because there's a lot of enemies and they respawn. You're not really meant to fight most of these enemies, to be fair. And most of the ones that you are meant to fight, like they don't respawn that quickly. It's the ones that are outside that respawn most rapidly. Far. And that's just because there's so many more spawn points outside. Almost any enemy on this level can respawn, but you know, there's just not enough spawn points indoors where you have to do most of the mission for it to really be that big of a danger. The troopers are probably the biggest danger on this level, unsurprisingly. The troopers do not respawn very quickly though. They do respawn a little bit, but it's at a very low rate. I think it's like 5% chance of them respawning. And I do actually, I think I go around and pick up a tiny bit of ammo here. Probably not even necessary. I have learned that it's not necessary to pick up much on this level at any rate. I do like to have some Enforcer ammo in case I need it, but I think at this point I have 26 spell attacks, which is enough probably to get me through chapter 4, which is the last time I'm going to bother using them at all. Like, there's just no point in using them past chapter 4, basically. So, I probably can just ignore them here. It's just really difficult to ignore them because they're so powerful for the early part of the game. But anyway, it is good to clear that room out because that recharger is very helpful. In particular, like you gotta deal with these troopers, and once you've dealt with them, it is quite likely you will need to top up your shields. No, I guess I only took 1x damage, that's not too bad. I think I still end up going back to them for the shields just because, like, this is such a, like I said, it's such a volatile level that, like, you do want to be a little bit cautious with your progression through it. I was mostly thinking, well, if there's an Enforcer there, I will go for that. But I probably could have done that by realizing that was the Hunter and Fighter and activation sound. Right, so this is definitely a difference in 1-2-1 versus the previous versions. Like, you can just, you know, snipe at the Pfhor from a distance and not really have to worry about hitting spit. Whereas in 1-3, you just kind of wait until the battle is done and try to take as little damage from the Pfhor as possible. It is definitely more satisfying to be an active participant in the battle. I think I was thinking that I would be able to hit either the troopers or the Enforcer from there, but they were not far out enough yet. There they come. I don't know what I was thinking with that one shot. So-called allies, right? And anyway, we're about 2/3 done with this mission now. I think I do end up going, and like I said, I do end up going and picking a little bit of ammo up. I think I only spent about 30 or 40 seconds on it this level. I spent quite a bit more time on Unlucky for Some, but that ammo on Unlucky for Some is 100% necessary in this level. It's probably not necessary at all. And I think on future runs I will just cut it out entirely. That was barely any time at all. That was like 20 seconds maybe. Once again, 1-2-1 does like change how I handle this segment of the level a little bit. I don't know why I even picked up those flame cells, but anyway, like because the fusion cannon secondary trigger is actually worth using there, it's really easy to just one-shot all of those troopers. And the troopers coming up too. Like, I would not have bothered even attacking these troopers here because it, in 1-3 or in physics that don't have the better fusion cannon, because like it would just be too wasteful of ammo to use the secondary shot on the troopers. So it's better to just let the Spectre deal with them. But in this case, it's just you're only using like 2/3 of a fusion cannon battery to deal with those two troopers. So it's like whatever. So this level is basically my own private Thermopylae, except a lot easier. And one interesting thing about this versus my own private Thermopylae is that in the speedrun of my own private Thermopylae, you only activate the center set of stairs, and in this version you activate the other two. So it's just kind of a curious side effect of how this route worked out. In this case, there's this 3x recharger, which is why it's so much easier, really. It's the one reason, I would say. That, and I think maybe you have better weapons to deal with the troopers, so there's that. Anyway, you need to activate the left set of stairs to get to this terminal. And now that I think about it, you really don't need to activate the right set of stairs at all. There's really no reason, because I just grenade jump every time I need to get up that area. So next time I probably will just activate the left set of stairs. So here I was not doing this before, but I started to do this grenade jump backwards after seeing TBCRs and 15 marathon through it. Wait, this is more efficient. But I definitely propelled myself further up than I needed to, which I wasn't sure about. I've not been practicing that grenade jump for very long. And the fusion cannon just does some incredible work here, so. This level really isn't dangerous at all because you have so much, at least in this version of the run, because you have so much fusion cannon ammo, it's just like you can just spam it ad nauseum at anything that can possibly do harm to you. So I was not expecting that Unpfhorseen to be down there, to be honest. Not that it really did me that much damage, but it was a little bit unexpected. I don't know actually where that particular Unpfhorseen usually spawns, but wherever it is, I don't actually know what woke them up either. And I also totally forgot that Hulk was there, which is really funny because I just walked past him, but again, evidence of me being half asleep. And then here I thought I was going to need to spam that fusion cannon at the trooper, and then I realized, oh wait, the trooper's going to kill himself. I don't actually know how long you have for the weapon overloads. Is it like a minute? Might be a minute. I probably could hold some of these shots for a decent amount of time. I just don't want to run the risk of overloading. I think this might literally be the only time I use the fusion pistols in this entire run. Like, most of the time it's just not at all worth. Like, because you have the fusion pistol or the fusion cannon is so much better as a sniper weapon. But in that particular case, I didn't really want to use an entire shot because I was not having much, or I didn't want to use the charge shot because I was not having very much luck with it. So I decided, well, I'll go ahead and use the pistols for once. I do like the dual fusion pistols. They're a pretty neat weapon. It's just that the cannon outshines them in basically every possible way. So since you can get them from the very start of the game, there's really no point in using. If you get the fusion cannon from the very start of the game, there's really no point in using anything else. In fact, you can get the fusion cannon before you can even get the fusion pistols. So why would you use the pistols at all? Except in those rare cases where the rare edge cases where you want a sniper weapon that's not going to use up an entire third of your battery if you miss. And you do have to come back here to punch those two switches. And I think that's mostly so that you end up reading Hathor's message there, which is very, very important to the story. Especially in 1.3. In 1.2.1, it's just somewhat important to the story. In 1.3, you will basically not understand the entire last chapter if you don't read it with that particular terminal. Well, not the entire last chapter, but you will not understand the ending without that terminal. And so we're done with chapter 3. That Hulk almost crept up on me and attacked me, but I got out of there before, just in time. And so I missed the hole in one here, but I think I did get it for chapter 4. Alright, so for this level, Pfhor lamm, or Pfhor lamm, I don't know, something like that. Pfhor lamm. I think it's Pfhor lamm. If I remember right, the Pfhor and the Danish, or not Danish, Swedish pronounces the Pfhor with the ring over the A is pronounced like Pfhor. So I think it's Pfhor lamm. Anyway, this level changes appearance a lot in 1.3 as we switched it to the Yarrow set. Because the idea is that each chapter is supposed to have a dominant texture set, which is true for chapters 1, 2, 3, and 5. But in 1, 2, and earlier, chapter 4 does not have a dominant texture set. Like, there are 4 levels in chapter 4 that have the 4 set, and there are 4 levels in chapter 4 that have the Yarrow set. But the Yarrow set is intended to be the dominant set of chapter 4. So for 1.3, we went ahead and changed the Yarrow set, because it doesn't really meaningfully change the story too much to have this be Yarrow Station that Pfhor has taken over. But I just because we're trying to keep chapter 4 to being mostly, we're trying to keep 1.2.1 to being mostly bug fixes, so that's just gonna be a 1.3 change. The other big thing that 1.3 changes is that a lot of the curves are a lot smoother, which again, since 1.2.1 is supposed to be largely bug fixes, we've not instated that for this version. So here I'm just going through and clearing out a bunch of enemies that could possibly cause me trouble later, but most of the strat for this level is going to be to pick up this 3x and invincibility that you get a little bit. You get under this secret here, and just YOLO most of the most dangerous parts of the level while you're still invincible. Enforcer didn't even know what hit him. And so we clear out a lot of those monsters. Some of those monsters we clear out just so that they won't bother us once we've dealt with the most dangerous part of the level, but some of the other monsters we just cleared out so that they wouldn't be there right now. But I probably don't actually need to clear out those hunters that I got in advance. I don't really think there's much chance of them getting in the way. No, not for sure. Mostly, I just want to get rid of all of them forces in this area before while I'm invincible. Like the hunters, they're not really that big of a threat. Troopers, yeah, I guess we should get rid of the troopers and the enforcers are the threat. The other dudes, whatever. Hunters are really only a threat up close in Eternal, and they don't really, like, we don't let them get up close to us very often, so. We probably don't even need to deal with the Moas here, honestly. But sometimes the enforcers will be very nice and will hit both of these switches up here, but they did not do that here, so. The goal for this level is that we need to destroy, or we need to shut down this this power core here. So there's like 4 sets of wire, or 4 switches we have to hit. I definitely grenade jumped a little bit higher up than I needed to. Well, anyway, so we got those first 2 are down, and then I go back this way, which again, I think that I don't know if this is perfectly optimal or not. And honestly, I think I'm going a little bit further out of my way than I need to. I did not take that much damage there. So I probably can do this like 20 or 30 seconds faster. But it's a pretty good route. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. This next level in Incredible Hulk is definitely the biggest time sink of the level of the run. I don't know how much time we can save. It's just a very convoluted mission. It has way too many switches. 1-3 gets rid of some of the switches. But part of the issue is that like you kind of have to deal with a lot of these Hulks. They like even though this is like a Journal Slave Rebellion, but at this point they're still hostile to you because they don't actually know that you're a separate faction from Pfhor. You don't really like Leela doesn't really manage to establish communication with them until after the next level of Babylon. I don't know if it's Babylon X or Babylon 10, or it's probably both, honestly. And because of that, well, you're not actually in communication with Leela from about the midway point of this level until Dreadnought, because afterward just jams your communications and very conspicuously pretends to be Leela. And it's obvious that it's not Leela, but you can't actually communicate with the real Leela, so you really have no other way of getting off this rock that's this is a moon that's surrounding a star that's about to do a rising, so you just gotta get off it which is the only way you can. So anyway, because of that, I'm rambling a little bit, but like there's just a whole bunch of Hulks, and dealing with they're big, bulky, bullet sponge enemies, and like you just gotta deal with them, and so it's just a very time-consuming level. Like it's a fun level, but it's very time-consuming. And I'm not really sure. Like maybe you can. I don't know if you can flip through windows or doors or anything anywhere. It seems like anything that you could do would be very, very inconsistent. So, like, I think the fastest I've done this might have been in 1-3. I think it was like a little bit over 10 minutes. In this version, I think this run wound up being about, I think it wound up being about 12 minutes in this run, and I wound up having to go back for recharges a little bit more often. Because some of the Juggernauts at one point did some pretty bad damage to me. And that's despite just trying to YOLO some of these segments. Like, I don't usually YOLO this segment here. I just ran past all the dudes and let them take care of each other, which is good. Pretty optimal. But I think I wound up having to, I don't know, like the thing is, like, if you don't deal with these Hulks then they have a very strong risk of just trapping you in places where it's very difficult to get out. Because they are big, so like you can't really maneuver around them very easily. So it's just risky to leave them alive. So, you know. Like here, I think I left that one Hulk alive, and then he just comes back to deal with them later. Might not have been there. It might have been somewhere else. Yeah, it was right here. So like I am able to get out of this, but it's like you don't have any really good DPS options until you get the wave motion cannon, which you do get at the end of this level. But like that's, you know, it's about 10 minutes too late to make most of this level 3, so because of that, you just kind of, you gotta deal, like, this is slow, but it's like the only really safe way to deal with it. Luckily they do Berserk, so like they will, you can, like if you get one of them to Berserk status, then you can often just leave a room and they'll take care of the others, but not, you know, it's not guaranteed. I really gotta get my aim a little better in this game. Like, it's not terrible, but I could definitely... Maybe I should not miss that one trooper. And then I just flat out forgot what side this enters on. That was great. They say that was some bad aim. It might be wearing a little bit too much on the side of recharging, but I don't know. I was not expecting to take like 1.5 times shields damage from that one trooper, so that's been fun. But this part of the level, I think, probably cost me the most as far as time goes. Just here with these juggernauts and stuff. Sometimes you can just run past these juggernauts, but just not able to do that this time. It's just like some RNG going. Whether they get away or not, they dodge the projectiles to some extent is also RNG. Because they have such high error. Of course, I got the suboptimal timing with that button. It's annoying. These guys just got right my way. They could, yeah, better go discharge. I think actually my previous attempt at running 1-2 might have died on this level, but I'm pretty sure it did. So that made me a little bit more cautious as well. So yeah, that terminal is Pfhor. It's not deathless, but it's pretty obvious. Because number one, it doesn't have Luna's deathless with yellow and green text. It's you know, Pfhor's dark green text. One other thing that was suboptimal about this particular run, though, this Juggernaut just flashed onto me immediately. Normally, you can deal with all the Juggernauts in this area with the wave motion cannon, but I did not get that lucky this time. I could have probably just gone through and yellowed it and gotten the wave motion cannon, but I was not very confident about that, so... Also, it looks like it might actually be 10 fusion cannon batteries that you have, or fusion cannon shots that you have to hit the Juggernaut with, and charge shots. Anyway, because I had to wait for that Juggernaut to drop down there too. Just not very optimal. And then I have to go back to get a recharge. It's just that segment was a disaster. It's gone a lot better. This might actually be the most RNG dependent run level in the whole run. Because like now that I think about it, it almost certainly is, because there's all of these battles between the Pfhor and the Renil, and it's just, and also like a lot of these monsters here will probably activate earlier when you hit the switches, so their positioning, like they can't reach the player, and any monster that can't reach the player is just going to wander around pretty randomly. So I guess it's not this part of. There are some monsters, I think, in this part of the level that will also activate. Maybe? I don't remember. I have to look at the map. But there are definitely a lot of monsters that will activate a long time before they can reach you. And any such monster is just gonna... There's gonna be a lot of RNG as to where they are here. Of course, every once in a while you can line up a wave motion cannon shot to hit 2 Juggernauts, and that's always really satisfying. That said, there are a couple things that can speed this level up in 1.2.1 versus other versions of the game. Like whenever you can, like there's some enforcers that we can just line up to get hit in these fusion cannon shots, the charged fusion cannon shots, and that will definitely save some time. But overall, this level is probably the weakest level of this run. I'm sure there are certain things that we could probably do a bit more optimally than I did them. I just like I don't think there's any way to cut out much of this level. I think it's probably the level that's just, we're stuck doing it the long way, more so than any other level in the game. Like, I could be wrong. Maybe someone will just discover this absolutely sick skip, but you know, the thing is this part of the level, you would have to clip through 2 doors if you really wanted to skip like most of the mission, and I think 1 door might be doable, but it would be very dangerous because you'd be stuck in that segment without a way back, and you would have to not take any damage, or much damage anyway, so that you get 3x. You know, so that you don't. You basically have to take, you know, probably fewer than 2x shields damage, I would think. Oh. Anyway, I don't think it's doable. This level, Babylon 10 or Babylon X, I don't know which is. I think, like I said, I think it's a fun on both. Anyway, this level is newly made low gravity for 1.2.1. In previous versions, the Incredible Hulk was low gravity, and this wasn't. And that doesn't make a single bit of sense, because this is supposed to be the same moon for both levels. So we decided to err on the side of, well, it's a moon, it should be low gravity. Which also enables that sick grenade jump that I just did at the start of this. I had been looking for that Enforcer, and I just had forgotten that Enforcer spawned a little bit later than I thought. I did this a little bit suboptimally. I forgot one of the sets of wires. So that took a little bit of time, but basically it wasn't too big of a time loss. The most optimal route for this level is basically to just circle around and activate as many of these monster fights, like just get the hulks and troopers and well, just the hulks and the Pfhor to wake up in as many parts of the level, and then you leave, and then you come back, and most of the monsters are dead. One thing about 1.2.1 that probably was not the case in that was definitely not the case in earlier versions, and might not also be the case in 1.2 or in 1.3 rather, yet, is that the hulks had been marked as alien. Even I guess that wouldn't affect this level, but they're no, like, once they are allied with you later, starting in Dreadnought for the rest of this chapter, they are no longer marked as alien once they're your ally. And that was actually necessary to fix an annoying bug, because there are 2 extermination missions where you are allied with the hulks, and the problem is that the game does not use monster alignment to determine whether a monster should be killed in an extermination mission. It uses the alien flag, and because they were marked as alien rather, if more than 8 Drenial were left alive at the end of the level, you could not leave. You would have to go kill some of them, which is very stupid. And because of that, we had to unmark them as alien in the physics. So that's a change in 1.2.1. And it probably messes with the monster balance, or with level balance a little bit on Total Carnage. But I think this was actually the first time I had played through those levels, because my previous best attempt on 1.2.1 had died on the Incredible Hulk. So I'm pretty sure that I hadn't really played those through on Total Carnage before, but with the Hulk alien flag turned off, but they seemed fine to me. Like, they were not super difficult. And I think probably that's better overall to have the alien flag turned off for those levels, because it will make it harder on harder difficulties and easier on easier difficulties, and that's what you want, really, right? So that was a little suboptimal. I didn't really want to use that wave motion cannon there, but whatever. It saves you. The other thing, like, there's a couple segments there that are kind of annoying. I'm not really sure if there's a good way to deal with them. I don't want to use all of my wave motion cannon ammo here, just in case I need it for the rest of chapter 4. But, you know. I mean, I was getting pretty dangerously low on health there, so. Anyway, this level's pretty fun. I like it a lot. It's, there are a lot of switches, but I feel like they're mostly arranged in a fairly logical order. Like, you can pretty much make a circle around the level if you do it optimally, which, that does depend to a certain extent on some monster RNG where, the Hulks force you around a certain way. Like, if the Hulks want you to go a certain way, they're going to make you go a certain way, basically. But assuming you don't get blocked in, you can basically just do a couple of loops and get the whole level. But anyway, I did forget a switch here, which probably cost me about 20 seconds, which was unfortunate. It might have been a little bit more than 20 seconds, because I can't remember which switch it was. I think it was probably more like 40 seconds. So that's a thing you need to kind of remember what switches you hit and which ones you don't. But I am able to find the correct switch that I missed fairly easily. So that's like maybe 40 seconds. And you do have to actually get a little bit closer to the center, but whatever. So this level, Dreadnought, is the 4th of the branch levels in Eternal. For reference, the fourth level of each chapter is always the branch level. And this level is unique among the branch levels. In most of the other levels, well, all the other branch levels, there's an obvious choice that you have to make. But that's not the case in Dreadnought. There's no obvious choice for this level. Whether you actually get the timeline, the failure timeline, or the success timeline is basically just, well, at least the first time around, it's dependent upon exploration. You just, like, there's an area that does not open until you have explored one part of the level. And then if you go explore, you'll find it. It'll be there will be these 4 wires that you will then destroy, and that'll get you to the success branch. But if you don't explore that, then you will in the failure branch on the level Run Coward, starting in version 1.2.0 of the game. The end of Run Coward will take you down back to this segment, to one of the segments of Dreadnought, not this specific exact segment, but I'll point out the room once we get there. And you will be there will be a couple of switches that will just open some doors, and there will be a teleporter that takes you out right before the segment that contains the sets of wires that you need to destroy to get success branch. And that was just something we did because we felt that the solution is a little bit obtuse. So if a player doesn't find it on the first try, then they almost certainly will now find it on the second try, because we're basically just telling them where to go without explicitly telling them where to go. And I really like how that worked out. Like, it wasn't something we were 100% consciously thinking of at first, but then when I really sat down to look at the areas of Dreadnought, this area right here, which this is the room that we added the Run Coward. And this room, I think, is one of the most recognizable rooms of Dreadnought. Like, players would immediately remember, okay, yeah, this is part of Dreadnought. And the fact that it's right near the cybernetic junction wires that you need to destroy was an added bonus. So I think it was just the obvious one to add. You might know, you might notice this, I've just been absolutely abusing the heck out of the quick swap. The weapon switch hotkeys. I would not be switching between weapons nearly this much, although the fusion cannon and the staff are right next to each other, but like, I would ordinarily not be switching between weapons nearly as much without the weapon switch hotkeys. So yeah, this is where the cybernetic junction pairs are. And yeah, like, if you don't explore, then you won't find this in the first playthrough, which, is a bit different, I think, than the other chapters, but I'm pretty fine with how we implemented it. So this level is once more into the breach. It has a counterpart in the failure branch. There are I probably didn't mention this in one of the other sets of levels that are paired. There are 3 sets of levels that between failure branches and success branches that are kind of or very similar. In 2 cases, they are meant to be the same location, and in a 3rd case, they are actually 2 different locations that just have very similar designs. But this level and Bug-Eyed in Space are paired, where the right side, I think, of this level is the same as the left side of Bug-Eyed in Space. Mostly so. There's a couple of differences that I probably want to get rid of before I want to bring into alignment with each other for the final release of 1.2.1. And then pissing on the corporation and burning down the corporation from chapter 2 are the same location, but just different doors and platforms and stuff are active in one versus the other. And then chapter 1, Roots and Radicals and Heart of Fusion are not the same location. They are two different AI cores, and they are somewhat different as of 1.2, because the 5D space areas are different, but the non-5D areas are identical. Like Durandal's core and Tifa's core, other than the 5D, look identical. But they are two separate locations, unlike these two, the two pairs in chapters 4 and 2. I think that's pretty interesting. I don't know if any other scenario has really done anything like that. I'm sure that one or two of them have, and I'm not thinking of them. But like, I don't think anyone else has done that in a way that like is sort of a timeline butterfly sort of thing, where two different timelines have. Maybe they have. I don't know. I'm trying to think of one that I've played that's done something like that, and I can't think of one. I guess Rubicon does something kind of similar, but now that I think about it, the two different versions of I Want a Vacuum and the two different versions of Core Wars are identical, so that doesn't... I don't know if that's really the same thing. I kind of wish they had used different versions of Core Wars. Like, they have two different versions between Rubicon and Rubicon X. I don't know why they didn't just use the alternate version for Core Wars 2 and then keep the main one the same. These Marathon 1 enforcers can be pretty brutal at times. They can just be death by 1,000 cuts. You can tell that like the Pfhor do a lot more damage to the Hulks now that the Hulks are no longer marked as alien. But that only really affects 3 levels. Now that I think about it, it affects this level. It affects Run Coward. And it affects Hawkeye in Space. I think that's the only levels that you see allied Trineal in. Because there's none in Dreadnought. And I don't think there's any in Genie in a Bottle either. So, it doesn't really affect very much of the game. But I didn't find this... Like, this was not very challenging. Like, it was not vastly more challenging than I remember it being in previous runs. So it's just, you know, whatever. Maybe I'll add a couple more Gummiel or something. So that... in case players just offset it a little bit, but like I said, it doesn't really need a lot of rebalancing. And one thing that we changed in 1.3 that is not implemented for 1.2.1, you can actually activate these side rooms. Because right now it's just kind of annoying, I think, to have to go deal with these guys from a distance. There's really no non-annoying way to deal with them. So we do make it so you can just go deal with them up close, or you can hit that switch. And when you hit that switch that opens that door, it also opens up a door that will allow the troopers and enforcers out of those rooms. Which I think is just a lot nicer. Number one, you can go pick up the Enforcer ammo if you want it. Though by this point, I mean, I've got 62 pellet packs. It's not like I need the ammo. But of course, I've also not been using the scatter rifle that much. But it's also just, you know, having to deal with them. Like, just having to snipe at them or having to make the troopers kill themselves. Like, both of those are just kind of time-consuming and annoying ways to deal with the enemies. And I do not know why I grenade jump up there. I definitely don't need that pellet pack, but I think I just wanted to get the 69 pellet packs. Nice. I'm pretty sure I wound up getting to more than that, though. But there's a few other things that we've changed about 1.3 that just allow you to use less cheese-dependent strats for areas like this. Like here, you just want to deal with these guys. You want to wake these guys up and then back up and deal with them in the hallways. But we do add some side corridors and stuff so you can go up and dodge enemies or whatever in that room in 1.3. I think the 1.3 version of this level is a lot better. But again, 1.2.1 is supposed to be mostly bug fixes, and I think if I start getting into the point where I add all these changes from 1.3, it's just gonna get to the... Like, I feel like if I start, then it's gonna be... I just need to kind of put my foot down and say, this has to hold off until later, or else 1.2.1 is just not gonna get done anytime soon. And I think, like, the important thing is getting 1.2.1 out, because it's been 2.5 years almost since 1.2.0, and the Windows crash is not fixed, and that's really the primary reason for 1.2.1. Like, I want to find other game-breaking bugs, like the one that I found in this run of Let Sleeping Gods Die, and that's really, I think, the only reason that that's really the primary reason that we have not just said 1.2.1 is done. Like, I think I'm just gonna say, you know, I'm probably gonna do a couple more full game. Like, I might do a full individual level run of every level, because I haven't done that yet with the development release of 1.2.1. And then, I don't know, maybe I'll co-op if someone wants to co-op the full game. I'll probably do that. And then if other people test it, then, you know, great. I hope other people will test it, because that would be ideal. But I do want to get this released hopefully this month, because it's drawn on for long enough. So this didn't go entirely optimally. I mean, I could have definitely not had to recharge as much as I did. But, you know, it wasn't terrible. This level is going to be time consuming no matter how you do it, because it is an extermination mission and there's pretty difficult enemies. I am not too pleased with having to go back to recharge that quickly, though. That was not optimal. This did go better in some respects than the previous run that I did at 1.3, where I think I wound up having to go back to that terminal, back to the terminal to see if I had killed enough enemies like 3 different times before I finally was able to get out. That was not great. And again, I don't know why I'm really even bothering to pick up ammo at this point, because I certainly don't need any. Like, I'm not going to use anything other than fusion and 0-point modules in Chapter 5, apart from a couple of assault rifle magazines, and I have way more than I need. Thank you, platform, that was very nice of you. I feel like maybe for 1.3, I'm probably going to take a lot of these platforms off of activate or deactivates never and just make them deactivates at original level and make them controllable by player and alien, or maybe just by player. I don't know. In any case, this time around, I just go to the terminal and actually am able to get out the first time. And we're almost done with Chapter 4. This level, Genie in the Bottle, you can skip about half of it, maybe even more. There's, like, it's a little bit dangerous in certain parts, but like, there's just a lot of it you don't really have to bother with at all. It's just there's 4 wires you have to destroy, and that's the mission. So you just gotta get to the point where you can get to those wires, and then destroy those wires, and that's basically it. In fact, the most optimal way to get to those wires involves the grenade jump that the designer was definitely not expecting you to do. And because of that, you can get through that area without really waking up most of the monsters. So that's a big advantage. The fusion cannon once again just doing some incredible work here. I think I started killing those enforcers and then was like, wait, I'm not even going to visit that area, what am I doing? I don't know if I actually needed to go back to that recharge, but I have lost at least one run on this level before, so like, it's not a super difficult level, but it's not free by any means, so I went ahead and played it safe. I switched off fusion cannon and then I was like, wait, okay, I need to kill that enforcer. This is like one of the, I don't think I used the fusion, or the napalm cannon much throughout this entire run, but I think I did use it a little bit on this level just because like this spread, I think, made it fairly valuable. But I don't even remember, honestly. I just remember thinking, I haven't been using the fusion compared to the napalm cannon at all. Might as well put the work here. I also probably didn't need to hit that switch, but I just hit it out of habit. This is also a kind of strange level in that you teleport midway through it, which is... I don't know how many other levels... There's at least one other one. I mean, there's we're done blue. Also, you teleport on mid level using a terminal. So anyway, we just grenade jump up here. Like there's this whole sequence that we're meant to deal with. We're not gonna bother with that. It's too complicated. There are actual drones that teleport in, but maybe there aren't. Oh, yeah, there are. We do have to deal with those dudes, but that's... And we're done with chapter 4, basically. If I remember right, I did finally get a hole in one this time. Or... maybe the secret is to actually use the napalm cannon. I don't know. That would be a secret, but... So, Chapter 5 is probably the second shortest chapter of the game after Chapter 1. We're at 211, and as you can see, I'm done with the run by 235. Well, a little bit over 235. So, you know, it took what? Probably 24 minutes? Something like that. I can go tally up all the times and see how long each chapter took later. So I probably won't during stream, but I might before I upload this to YouTube. And this, like, by this point, we are finally once again starting to get a decent amount of fusion ammo. Like, this is the first fusion ammo you're getting since literally chapter 2, I think, in this route. There are a couple of levels that you can get fusion ammo in during the failure branches, but we don't visit those because this is the any percent route. And I don't think I would even bother going for this secret normally, but I had taken a bit of damage from the Banshees. And I wanted to have full 2x when I went up here, just in case I hated it. So, because of that, I went ahead and, you know, recharged a little bit. And that was just faster than going for one of the 2x recharges, which I think are both fairly far from that area. But obviously that grenade jump is just by far the most optimal way to deal with this. I think I only went back this way because I wasn't sure if I picked up that ammo, which it turns out I had. And messing around a little bit here. I'm just going to the end now, finally. This isn't a very long level, it's really just meant to introduce you to the pathways enemies. This next level, the Deadlift in the Catacombs, I think there's, I used like 2 different grenade jumps here. In 1-3, this would be wave motion cannon jumps, but the wave motion cannon is not, it doesn't fire as quickly in 1-2-1, so it's not really that, you can't really jump with it the same way. But, like, I don't think I'm not gonna change that to 1-2-1, it's gonna just stay the way it is. But I think I'm gonna leave it the way it is for 1-3 as well. It's so fun to, like, it's a little broken, but it's not broken in a way that is likely to damage the game. Like, if casual players use it, they probably, like, I feel like anywhere you could get stuck, you can probably get unstuck from, so, like, it's just one of those things where someone accidentally gets themselves stuck, and I feel like they probably can't really complain too much about it. I don't know. And I haven't really discovered many places that you can even get stuck, so that's the other reason I'm not really inclined to change it. And I have tried, so. Anyway, because this is 1-2-1, I do end up having to use some grenade jumps, which are a little bit more or a bit riskier. So because of that, I do take this a little bit more cautiously than I would take it in 1-3, where I'd probably just YOLO it. So it's a little faster in the 1-3 run because of that. Nightmare's hitboxes are kind of tricky to figure out. You basically only really get one shot at this jump, though. So that is something to be worried about. Is that platform, once it activates, will not go back down. And you kind of need it to be able to do this jump. Which also means that you have to be very careful about here, like, not taking too much damage. Because obviously, you can't go back now. You just have to go through and get there is a recharger up here, but you just have to, be able to make it with the recharger. But as you can see, I didn't take too much damage. You do need to remember to read this terminal, because that's, that opens the way to the second half of the level where you get the chip that you need to leave. Like, yeah, if you have to go the long way around, that will be like 5 minutes out of your way, which is what that grenade jump saves you, like 5 minutes. I'm probably not even exaggerating there. And then there is a second grenade jump for the second half that saves about 2 or 3 minutes, I think, at least. So we can cut this from like 10 minutes down to about 2 or 3. I did not mean to go down that way, but oh well. It was like I did it again, but it wasn't very big of a time loss. So this next level, this gate is not a natural formation. It's probably the most dangerous grenade jump in 1.2.1 and earlier. In 1.3 we would just use a wave motion cannon jump here, and it would be free. But here, I was very worried that this run would die because I have not practiced this grenade jump in months, if not years. And it's really just a matter of sheer luck that I survived, I think. You'll see what I mean. As you can see, I almost died here. I was very worried that these nightmares would kill me. Or that for that matter, that the orbs, the Yarrow orbs would kill me. And I did survive. I had very, very little health left. I did survive. And, like, honestly, I am kind of reluctant to do another 1-2-1 speedrun because that jump is like 2 hours and 18 minutes into the run. It would be like 2 hours and 15 minutes or something in a slightly more optimal run. 2 hours and 12 minutes, I don't know. But it would still be more than 2 hours in. And, like, it's just such a random... Like, if those grenades had done more damage to me, I would have died. If I had gotten a worse pattern with the nightmares, I would have died. Like, there's a lot of things that could have killed me that would just be pure RNG. And I may or may not do another 1-2-1 run. Like, I might just focus on 1-3 from this point on. But I don't know. I think honestly it depends on. Like, I'm gonna practice. I think I'm gonna practice this level a bit more. And see how those practice runs go. And if they go well, then I'm able to get that somewhat consistent. Then I will probably do more runs. If not, then I might just focus on 1-3. The other possibility is I might just do that level without the skip, because I think it only saves about 2 minutes. And there's definitely more than 2 minutes worth of time saves in the rest of the level and the rest of the run, so I don't know. This level of Deep into the Grotto is the final of the 5 branch points of the game. This used to be one of the most despised levels of the game, and I think with decent reason, because these swarms of monsters were like this throughout the entire level, which is obviously no longer the case. You can see them they're already starting to die down. But like they would just never end. And to be fair, almost all of Chapter 5 was like that. There were a few levels that didn't have respawning monsters, but a lot of them did. But this was one of the worst offenders, along with the next level. This message will self-destruct. But like we've got the respawning monsters down to an actually sane level, to where they can still like induce a bit of paranoia. You need to be careful that you're not just letting monsters sneak up on you, which they could come up on you from any angle, basically. But you don't have to be like you don't have to just constantly spam the gravitronic blade or wave motion cannon throughout the entire chapter. Also, that opening bit where you have that, it's basically teaching you to deal with how to use the gravitronic blade. I feel like with the way that initial swarm of monsters, which I think is very good designed, because you could waste your time using a bunch of other weapons, or you could just use this. Basically, let's be honest, it's a lightsaber to tear through every single monster that is right in your path. But at the same time, it also teaches you what the limitation of the blade is, that it will not destroy things that are outside of its range. Which, again, I think that's also good design. Anyway, for 1-2-1, for the success branch, you just destroy those wires, and then there was that other set of computer banks that I disabled earlier, and those are the only two. Like there are 6, I think, sets of computer terminals that you have to disable, plus those wires. But that secret that I grenade jumped up to, which is new in 1.2.0, that secret disables 5 of them remotely. And we introduced that in 1.2.0 because the previous versions of the game, due to an oversight and the map making by the map makers, basically only required, I want to say, 2 of the sets of terminals, of the sets of computer banks to be disabled. And by getting rid of that glitch, we were basically adding like 3 minutes to the game. And that seemed rather rude. Like, I would have been annoyed by that. And I'm sure the speedrunners would have been, other people that were speedrunning the game would have been as well. Like, this was even before I speedran the game, to be clear. But at the same time, this was the sort of thing that a casual player could easily just get through that level without even realizing they were supposed to deactivate all those wires. And like that would mess up the narrative, I think, and it would mess up the level. Like it would make the level, like it would damage the storytelling and it would damage the level. I think like players should be expected to, you know, complete what's actually supposed to be the mission in some fashion or another. Now, if you find a secret to make the mission a lot faster, that's one thing. But if you just inadvertently don't complete the mission, I feel like it should be something that you can't accidentally mess up. Like if you complete the mission quickly because you find a secret, then that's, you know, something that just saves you time. But if you complete the mission just because you lucked into a level bug, and I'm not sure that really works the same way. Anyway, because of that, we added that secret to 1.2.0. You don't have to do that. And you can use that to remotely deactivate 5 of those 6 computer banks. Or maybe it's 5 of 7. I don't know. Like there's one set of banks that could sort of be considered a set of computer banks, sort of isn't. I don't really know if it's meant to be or not. Anyway, this message will self-destruct. And I am like, there are a couple of ways that could possibly speed this level up, but I feel like they would not be viable for Total Carnage, except if you pass strat, because you're basically required to, like, if you want to do this level even faster, then you would need to do some grenade jumps. But the problem is, you've seen what the combat on this level is like. This level does, like once you've killed some of the Pfhor, it does clear up a little bit. But the thing is, the Pathways monsters will target you even more aggressively once you've done that. So, like, there's probably no way to make those grenade jumps safe on Total Carnage, unless you're doing a task, of course. So I feel like, and I haven't tested this for 1.2.1, but I have tested this for 1.3 with the wave motion cannon jumping, which is actually a lot more free than grenade jumping, because with the wave motion cannon you don't take damage. With the grenade jumps you probably will. And so because of that, like, I don't think there's a good way to make the grenade jumps viable for Total Carnage. Like, it might be possible to make it kindergarten viable, but even that, like, I remember watching TBCR practice this level when practicing for kindergarten and thinking, this looks really, really brutal. So, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if the grenade jump strats or wave motion cannon strats will ever really be viable, but I kind of doubt they will, for Total Carnage at least. So because of that, I just do this the long way, and it takes about 7 or 8 minutes. I don't know, you know, someone might prove me wrong. I should know that when I'm doing this as an IL, I think it usually takes me about 5 or 6 minutes. But I do tend to be a bit more cautious by this point when I've got a deathless run. Because, you know, if I die, then that's 2.5 hours down the drain. And I have had quite a few levels, or runs die on this level. So. don't know why I even went out of my way to get those pellet packs. Definitely am not going to use them. I've got 94 of them now. I don't know why that for some reason the blades did not want to hit those drones. I don't usually have that much trouble. Like normally they just one-hit kill whatever in front of you, but for some reason they did not. I had a little trouble waking up the monsters in there too for some reason. Anyway, the most difficult parts of the 1-2-1 speedrun are basically past us at this point. The next level, we met once in the garden. I would be pretty worried about losing a run on it in 1-3, but in 1-2-1, it's not super dangerous for the most part. There's a segment that has a final boss battle in 1-3 that is very treacherous for the speedrun because you're coming at it from a rather unpleasant, like a rather treacherous angle, basically. But in 1-2-1, it's not too bad. You just got a couple juggernauts that you can one-shot with the wave motion cannon. So you just need to take this part a little bit cautiously here, and you'll probably be fine. And I'm just ignoring those drones entirely. They probably did like a full shield worth of damage to me, but I think it was more important to get rid of that juggernaut. Like, I'm okay jumping over to that area when there's 2 surviving juggernauts, but when there's 3, it's a little bit risky. Anyway, because you can... Once again, I'm able to one-shot 2 juggernauts with a single shot. So was that actually half-shotting them? I don't even know. This is weird. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of drones that wake up. Not too threatening. There are a couple of juggernauts in that final segment. This is where the final boss, quote-unquote, battle is for 1-3, by the way, this area here. And that's why it's so much more treacherous in 1-3. In fact, that's really the only major change in 1-3 that makes this a lot more dangerous. But in this point, because there's no super dangerous monsters here, you can really, just take out all these dudes, or as many of them as you think are necessary to take out, depending on your level of shields. And then you can just go through, and there's a 3x here, or 2x rather. I don't even bother going back to get more shields after I've gone through and cleared this area out, because it's not super dangerous. That's interesting. Okay, so the one thing I noticed before is that the like something messes up in this with the when I'm doing when you see the like if you watch the render of this when I the render of this from the with the HUD on, you'll see when I upload this to YouTube. I'll have a game audio and video only render that uses the custom Eternal HUD. And this level and in she's the Dark One, which both continue from previous levels. And I think probably in the Dream levels as well. You'll notice that the player weapon sprite is displaying the teleport in effect, even though you're not teleporting in. But I just noticed that it didn't display in this with the HUD off, and I'm not sure if that's just because it had the loading time before, and it probably doesn't render with the loading time when you're using that. I don't know. Didn't really need to make sure that Juggernaut died, but I just wanted to be sure. And one last note, I did not actually even remember to pick up that chip, but it turned out not mattering, because you get an extra chip at the start, or at the end of, no, at the start of This Cave is Not a Natural Formation. And I actually completely did not even think about that when I was playing, and that could have screwed me up. I had been playing for like 2.5 hours at this point, obviously, so I was just kind of brain dead by this point, but luckily it did not matter. And one thing that's different in 1.2.1 for this level is that there is this new fog script, whereas before it looked exactly the same as the first level, other than the forced extra vision, which is not actually on right now because I screwed something up in the script. But anyway, the fog script is inspired by this line in the Kill Your Television text about how our battles there are fought in the dark, with the sun seldom visible and the moon never, or maybe it was the other way around. Anyway, because of that, I put that fog script in. And so that's Eternal 1.2.1 release candidate 2. I don't know if the link to get the game is visible right now. I will post it once this screen is finished. And one final note is that I screwed up the credit screen a little bit. I thought the end of the final screen was going to end a little bit before it did, or start a little bit. I don't know. You'll see that I just messed up the dimensions. I thought it was going to be a 640 by 480 screen, and apparently it isn't, or else I just miscounted 640 by 480, one or the other of those. But anyway, hope you enjoyed. If people want to go and test this version and tell us if anything doesn't work other than the stuff that I pointed out, that would be very helpful, because part of the reason I've been reluctant to just call 1.2.1 finished is that I'm basically the only person testing it right now, and I keep finding new stuff that I didn't find before, so... I probably am not going to keep streaming after this because it's already almost midnight, and I've been staying up entirely too late lately, but I don't know. Eternal 1.3 is still, we're still under development. Both of these versions are still under development. It's just that 1.3 is a lot longer to go before it's anything like finished. And Where Monsters Are in Dreams is also still under development, but a lot of it has just been stuff on the back end that, like, we're finalizing our shapes and physics, because we feel like that's just like the most important thing at this point. And once we have that all finished, then we'll hopefully be able to make a lot faster progress on the rest of the game. Yeah, anyway, as you can see, Forest, based upon the Marathon Trilogy by Bungie Software Products Corporation, is supposed to be the only thing on the final screen, but for whatever reason, didn't quite work out that way. I'm not sure what we screwed up. So anyway, yeah, okay, the link is still up there at the top of the screen. I guess people didn't really say that much during this version. People said a lot more in the previous. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed. I will, thanks for watching. See you guys next time. Have a good night.